Hey, Steve, welcome to the WP Minute.
Hey, Matt, good to see you.
SteveBurge.com. You can follow him, Steve J. Burge, on Twitter/X. Search for Steve Burge on Blue Sky. I'm sure you're everywhere. I don't want to say you're an enigma to me, but you just have a lot of stuff. You actually remind me of me with so many different things going on. You have PublishPress, you have WP Metaslider, you have TaxoPress, at least that's the Twitter handle, and then you have Logtivity. And Steve Burge is your personal homepage with all the stuff, 20 years of experience, 12 books you've written. I don't know, man. How do you do it? How do you keep up with all this stuff? Do you have like a team of 1,000, or are you just all in on AI and your AI agents are building everything for you?
Neither of those. We have a team of 13, 14 at the moment, and I really haven't done too much to AI in my life.
Well, I'm surprised. People haven't been well, let me frame it this way. A lot of hype. We see every company talking about their AI thing. Are your customers not knocking on the door saying, "Hey, Steve, give us some AI in your product"?
You know, the best use that I have for AI in my life is my kids are old enough to be doing homework that I can't help them with now. Like their math homework is too complicated for me now. And so they'll sit there often with ChatGPT trying to get answers on their advanced algebra homework. That's about the most of AI in my life so far.
You're a better man than me, Steve, because my 2-year-old comes home with his math homework, and I'm like, oh, God, I don't want to grade all this. And I just snap a photo. I snap a photo of it, and I go, just grade this. But just to give myself some credit, so everybody doesn't think I'm a bad parent, I got 3 young boys, and when they come home, it's 3 young boys trying to get them to do homework, baths, food, eat, clean up. It's, if my wife isn't around, it's chaos. So sometimes I cheat and I take a picture with ChatGPT, and that helps me. At least it helps me for the homework side of it.
AI is not helping with any of those other things.
No, it's not making the food. It's not cleaning the house. I wish it did, though. Talk to me about your background in publishing books. We're going to talk about publishing, as we were in the green room before we went into this. But tell me about the background of writing books. What came first, the books or the plugins?
Oh, the books, definitely. I used to be a teacher and wanted to teach and write books. That was the thing I still love. You can see behind me, I've got shelves full of books here. I just couldn't make enough money as a teacher. I was a teacher until a wife and kids and a mortgage came along. And I was living in Georgia, north of Atlanta at the time. As you can tell from my accent, that's where I was born and bred.
Where were you born and bred?
I'm from England originally, but my wife is American, and we moved to a small town in Georgia. And I think after 2 or 3 years of teaching there, my salary was $30,000 or so. So I needed to make more money, needed to pay the bills. And I had been dabbling in open source and decided to take my teaching skills and combine them with open source and launched a training business. We originally were doing it in person. I'd fly around the country and train people how to use WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, some PHP training. And it was wonderful. I got to explore the country. Went to pretty much 49 states, I think, doing that. No one ever invited me to Hawaii, but I did get to go to Alaska once to do some training up there, and did lots of government work. This was 2009, 2010. We'd be up in Washington, D.C. doing lots of training. And that ended almost on one day. The guy from Texas, Ted Cruz, the senator. Well, back in 2013, he decided to shut down the government. Basically, he put a hold on things, and the government shut down for about 3 weeks. And all the training contacts we had just disappeared overnight. I thought we were really clever that we had lots of clients. Our clients were the Department of Energy, Department of Veterans Affairs, Department of Defense, Department of Energy. Well, it turned out that was just really one client, the government.
Yeah.
And so that disappeared almost overnight, and it never really came back. Lots of people had to push their training budgets a year, and then a year down the line, things were different and had moved on. So I turned my attention to books, and we ended up writing a WordPress book, a Drupal book, a Joomla book. It was all written on WordPress. There's a platform called Pressbooks. I'm not sure if you've come across them.
I think I have, yeah.
Where you can basically write everything in the classic editor, and they will do everything else from there. You can upload your images, and they will do an export that you can then send to Amazon, and they will just do a print run of your books. Whenever anyone orders them, they will do a paperback copy of your books for you, and it was a lot of fun for a while.
I recently acquired, and not to make this about me, Steve, but it's my show. No, just kidding. I recently acquired Master WP.
Yeah.
And listen, I have no immediate plans as I do with most things. I sort of launch them, I talk about them, I think about them, I iterate on the idea, and then I start something small. And I think, and this is for anyone listening to this as an opportunity, I think training for WordPress and educating around WordPress is actually, even in the face of AI and so much on YouTube, that those kinds of things are so immediate, but so, I'll use the word shallow. They're immediate, but shallow. And I think, people might have an affinity with, give me somebody in person. Give me somebody who's been doing this, who can come fly out to me again, or at least connect with me on a Zoom call and walk me and my team through something. What's your gut tell you on training? Could it have a comeback even in the face of all this content in front of us? Is there a chance?
No, sadly. I wish it would. I do plugin development now, and it's definitely a lot more lonely. It was a wonderful experience actually doing the human to human interaction, talking with people, physically sitting down next to them and helping them. But I remember the day almost instantly when I realized it was dead, that a company flew me out to Silicon Valley, to San Francisco, big semiconductor company, and I was there to do a week of training for them. Walked in their big conference room, and there was a TV in front of me, and there was basically 14 guys in India all zooming in. Hey, this is the future. In-person training. It was wonderful, but it's time to move on.
But okay, so let me just go back to that. What about just training from another human, even if it is on Zoom, right? Do you think that there's opportunity there, or is it all given up to AI and YouTube these days?
We did try and do the Zoom training, but I think people's attention span is just much shorter. We used to get people, this was really pre-phone addiction days as well, but we used to get people in a room for 8 or 9 hours, and they could sit down and focus on us teaching them something. And now you move to Zoom. I don't know if it's something about the quality of the interaction, but people's attention really starts to fade after an hour or so.
Yeah. So you end up selling OS training. The government shutdown happens. I think I actually do recall that for those 3 weeks. And then you say, okay, I need to get something off the ground, literally to survive. Had you already started to build the plugins? What was the first plugin, and what was that experience like? Yeah,
we'd started to make the move. We sold OS training when it was still going well. OS training was the name of the business, the training business that we had. And a lot of what we try to do in WordPress, even now, comes from a lot of those big clients, like some of those government contractors we were dealing with. I've got a clear memory of sitting down with someone in one of those big departments, and they had just decided to go with Drupal instead of WordPress. And the reason was that Drupal offered really fine-grained access control over what people in the government department could do, and also some way to progress content through stages before it was published. And that kind of stuck with me. There's got to be a demand for this in WordPress as well, for people that really care about their content, either because they actually care about it or because some legal department is making them care about it. So we did training for a lot of universities and a lot of government departments. And so we kind of took those learnings and tried to apply them to WordPress. What would happen if you have to be really careful about your content before you publish it? You probably need something more than just pending review and draft to get something ready. One of the funniest customers I remember was a medical company, one of the household name pharmaceutical companies, and they were selling some interesting products, and they needed to make sure all the content was exactly accurate before it goes online. They can't make any medical claims about something. Everything needs to be exactly proofread down to the letter. All of the disclaimers they have in those TV commercials at the end. And they had like 16 or 18 of these stages that the content needed to go through for approval. And so most of those people, I think, now are on WordPress. WordPress has kind of taken over that power publishing. I mean, Drupal's still around, still doing well. But I guarantee if I knocked on the door of all those people we worked with in the past, that they're on WordPress now.
Yeah. I want to talk, obviously we'll talk more about the importance of WordPress in the publishing space, but back to your entrepreneurial journey, which came first? Give us the timeline. PublishPress, MetaSlider, all at once? What were the first few products that you started to launch?
The first one we launched was, there was a old plugin called EditFlow that was taken over by Automatic.
Yep.
And Automatic has lots of wonderful products, but quite often I think if someone gets hired by Automatic, they have to bring their plugin with them, and maybe it doesn't fit in with the priorities of the time. And EditFlow didn't, and we were using it, so we decided to fork it and make it our first test plugin. And if you haven't used EditFlow, basically it's like a big editorial calendar that you can look at all your content that's coming up, and you can drag and drop it to a new location. Say, hey, we have a post that's scheduled for Thursday. Let me drag it to next Monday instead. Yeah,
I remember EditFlow really well. In fact, now that I haven't thought about it since I had used it, many years ago. So you fork it, and that's the first iteration of what is now. Let me just look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I would call them add-ons or plugins. How do you refer to them under the umbrella of PublishPress?
Yeah, we've slowly grown, and we may be adding more. For example, one of the guys who was involved with EditFlow also had a plugin called Co-Authors Plus that, again, a fairly simple technical problem. Like WordPress only allows you one user for each post, and he had a solution that would allow you to add 2 or 3 authors to one post, and he'd just been hired by Automatic. I sat down with him at a conference. It was the LoopConf. If you remember it, I think it might be coming back this year, in fact.
It is, yeah.
LoopConf in Salt Lake City. And he looked at me and said, Steve, I'm going to join Automatic. I don't think I'm going to have much time to work on it. You should fork the plugin. Okay, there's plugin number 2. And
So they should make like a WordPress movie about you where you're just like walking along and all of a sudden like plugins land on your lap and they go, here you go.
That's really been the way it's gone.
Yeah.
We got talking to a guy in Michigan who needed some help with our first plugin. It turns out he's got like 3 extra plugins with about 200,000 users. It's like, oh, you seem to know what you're doing. We ended up hiring him, and he's still with us. I think he just had his 7th anniversary with us.
Nice.
A couple of weeks ago, and yeah, just like almost like carrying a magnet around. You suddenly all these plugins start popping up until you end up with a collection of them.
Yeah, I can totally understand. One of the great things about WordPress, obviously it solves so many different needs, from like the mom and pop shop to the individual blogger to higher ed and enterprise and publishers and all this stuff. Many of them can all be interconnected with just a blog, right? Like maybe all of these avatars have a blog, and that's kind of where that experience meets in the middle. Though I might guess it might be challenging for you from like a marketing and product positioning thing. Like, are we like just for publishers, like publishers, capital P? Are we for enterprise and higher ed that need more like access control? Is it all of it? As you've matured the business of PublishPress, how have you dialed in the right customer for you?
Oh, good question. I've thought about that a ton over the years. We originally said publishers, and now we've slightly elongated it to say people who care about their publishing. Because we do have a lot of publishers, a lot of small newspapers, magazines, but also we have the government, the universities, the pharmaceutical companies, anyone that really cares about their publishing and doesn't want to just do a quick AI draft and hit publish. Anyone that really needs to check and double check their content before it goes live.
Yeah. From a, another popular thing that I see with, I would say friends and colleagues of ours that have other plugins. I'm thinking maybe like Syed and, Automotive and other folks who distribute to or through hosting companies. I'd imagine this kind of thing is, well, you explain it to me. I'll pose the question. How is it to get distribution through web hosts? I know like Automatic has Newspack. Is that a thing they connect with you and you say, hey, look, you've got Newspack. I got a bunch of plugins that work really well for your type of customer. Let's collaborate. What's distribution like for you through web hosts?
We're not really one of those plugins that has that option, unfortunately. Newspack is small but mighty. I really admire the work they've been doing. They've been like a fairly small division inside Automatic, but really been making some good progress. They have, I think, getting up to several thousand websites on their platform now, and are starting to add some bigger publishers. I don't think they're really quite big enough to be to have much in the way of partnerships, and I know they have like a big license with us, and they put PublishPress on a lot of their news sites, but they're not quite there in terms of being a not like hosting companies have VIP partners and proper partnership programs. They're certainly a little more informal. But they're probably, if people ask me about the success of WordPress in the publishing space, Newspack is probably one of the first 3 organizations I point to and say, hey, these guys are doing awesome work.
Are there other, who are the others that you could share?
Oh, well, there's Newspack. There is a small a fairly small, almost like one-man company called Paywall Project. He's connected to Leaky Paywall, a plugin that does paywalls for magazines, and just very quietly, just on his own almost, he's managed to get several hundred small newspapers onto his platform. And there's another platform called Lead, Lede, that spun out of a big agency called Alley. And they've done really some interesting work with some new publishers. There's one called Defector, which is a big sports publisher, spun out of, it was called Deadspin originally. Related to the Gawker space. And so Lead is a kind of spin-off of Alley, and they're working on some fascinating publishing projects, all based on WordPress. A lot of them happen to be owned by the journalists, which is a really nice spin.
Based on what you've seen in the bigger publishing space or even the enterprise space, what's your experience with customers saying no to WordPress? We don't want WordPress because what is their reasoning?
They need simpler. Things. The people that go away from WordPress tend to be more like the small one-person sites that would prefer to go maybe Substack or Ghost.
Yeah.
I don't hear too much of the cannibalization at the top end. You've got organizations like WordPress VIP around who they're more than capable of taking care of the high-end clients. If there is people eating WordPress's lunch, it's definitely at the lower end. Someone that wants to send out a newsletter blast once a week.
Right. Beehive, Substack, that kind of thing. Probably Kit, MailChimp, people who are just like, I just need this kind of solution.
Plus those have the social, the recommendation features built in as well.
Yeah.
If you're on a WordPress site by yourself, you're not going to benefit from all those Substack recommendations that nudge other people to sign up for your newsletter.
Sure. I usually have at least one, what I call strap on your seatbelt roller coaster ride questions. And I'm going to give you one right now. And it's not even a direct question. I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff at you and then look for your feedback. So, and there's many threads of thought here. I'm going to try to wrangle myself in on this one too. But we're living in a world.
Should I get a pen and take notes before?
Yeah, you might need to. So we're living in a world where, WordPress is being challenged, right? The community's being challenged, with everything happening with WP Engine and Automatic and Mullenweg. WordPress is being challenged with, is this the best tool anymore? It's, air quotes, monolithic. It's 20 plus years old. There's all this newfangled AI stuff. There's lots of people who question, is open source even a viable thing, right? I thought we had say in making this software. Turns out we don't fully. Should we even be supporting this anymore? There's all these things happening. There's a very catastrophic fear happening right now in the world of WordPress. And I'm looking for ways to, I guess, without picking sides, if that can even be possible anymore. How do we continue to keep WordPress going? How do we keep the platform going and propping up open source? And I was listening to another podcast, which is not even in the WordPress space. It's an AI podcast. It's a bit hypey, right? He does some pretty clickbait. I'm actually forgetting the name of the channel right now, but he's got a few 100,000 subscribers. It's kind of hype clickbaity, but it's good content. And he had this really young kid on, I don't know, low 20s, 21, 22. I don't know how old he was. And he's talking about building directories and how he can make all this money building these directory sites. And he says, he's explaining how he does it. He does all this research, does all this thing. And then he goes, I built this directory, the example directory that he was talking about in WordPress. And he goes, I know it's a stupid decision to use WordPress, right? And I'm listening to this, and I was just like, why? So he's like, I'd rather be using like Framer, or I could build this in Bolt. And then the host is like, yeah, I can't believe you picked WordPress. Like, why would you pick WordPress? And I'm listening to it going, no, it's actually the best platform to pick, because what you all don't realize is whenever you vote for your little AI project or your little side hustle project, whenever you vote for something that's closed sourced, or, you know, this integrated AI platform thing, when your business that you're making money with eventually actually costs you something, and you're done with like the hype moment of, oh, this thing's making me so much money, because you haven't really scaled it yet, WordPress actually is the best choice, because things are detached. It's an open source database. It's an air quotes open source front end. You can move it to a different web hosting provider. You can analyze your database and optimize it. You have a user login system. You can have theming. And I know it's not beautiful, and I know there's a learning curve, but in fact, you can pick it apart, move things around, and it is a great solution. It's just not sexy. And that's the world we're living in, I think, with WordPress. Should we be doing this thing? There's chaos in the community. Oh, God, AI looks so alluring compared to WordPress. What's your thoughts on that grenade of thoughts I threw at you?
That sounds more like a justified rant than a question.
Yeah.
I got one word for you. Was it two?
Bourbon.
Lunchtime.
Yeah.
Deep seek. Like, we just had one of the best selling pitches for open source that we've had in years just dropped on our laps, that with the power of open source, thanks to Facebook's decision for whatever ulterior motives they had behind it to open source all their research through Llama, we have a product that is capable of competing with far, far, far more expensive alternatives. I mean, that's kind of what WordPress is empowering still, that the technology itself may be a little old, but the principles that it stands for are going to be valuable for many, many years to come. I started my journey here in just pure PHP, then some Joomla, then some Drupal, and then some WordPress. And the throughput for all of those has been the value of doing things in the open source way. I've still got a little bit of a Joomla business that's still going, a little bit of Drupal business that's still going. WordPress, even if it was to take a precipitous decline tomorrow, it would still be employing many thousands of people for years to come. But perhaps the important thing is what you were saying in your justified rant, that these kids moving to Webflow, moving to closed source platforms, are losing something of value.
Yeah.
If they're building with JavaScript, for example, great, go for it. If they're building with open source tools, I think they'll find themselves with a better career, a better future for themselves and for their platforms if they stick to the open source way.
Yeah. Another debate that I have with some folks, particularly Kevin Geary, is like the core use case for WordPress. And I don't have an answer, but I think, as you know, and as a lot of us who have been in the space for so long, I mean, it started as a blogging tool. And then, Matt and Automatic sort of picked up this torch of democratizing publishing. And I think that was the thing, the North Star, when WordPress and blogs were cool. Again, a lot of air quotes in this episode. I'm throwing air quotes. When blogs and WordPress were cool. But I think it is so important as a as an open source tool, to have an open source publishing tool like WordPress. But I think we're also getting tugged in another direction where it's like, oh, but we want this great website builder tool too, right? And I don't see those as equal. I don't see that as the same path, right? I don't know how WordPress can be the best publishing tool, bloggers, editors, collaborators, but also the best website building tool. I mean, I get it. I get why. I just don't know from like a product person perspective, like how both of those meet. Your thoughts on WordPress as like pure publishing tool, pure website building tool? How do these two merge, or is it not as complicated as I'm thinking it to be?
I wonder if you take a step back 7 years. I mean, how old is Gutenberg now? Gutenberg was...
I think it's 8. I think it's 8.
8. Okay. I seem to remember at that time, the original... the time the project was launched, we were looking at Weebly and Wix and Squarespace and all their cool drag and drop tools. I mean, it is useful for WordPress to have those in the core. What's the word? Steel man, I think. The like taking the opposite side seriously is that the downside to taking the Gutenberg approach is there's only so many volunteer hours, so many contributor hours in the day that you can't do everything in the core with a team of volunteers plus a few paid helpers as well. So perhaps this was too much of a big project to take on to try and compete with the Wixes and the Weeblys and the Squarespaces of the world with a volunteer team. Part of being an open source probably is realizing you have some limitations. You're not how many billions of dollars are companies like Meta throwing at the problem of AI? Whole rooms full of people making $500,000 or $1 million a year. So maybe the Steelman way to think about the people that don't like Gutenberg or think it was the wrong choice is, should we be trying to make the best publishing tool and the best website building tool? Some of that should probably be left to third parties, to the Elementals and the Beaver builders of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree. It's one of the great things about open source. That's why I don't want to see, it's why again, this is a challenging time. I feel like everything, normally half glass full kind of guy with tech, most of the time. But I feel like everything hangs in the balance quite literally with WordPress. Like as we wait for this, suits to happen with WP Engine and Automatic, and what does that spell? Like, we were really exposed to, at least I was, I don't know about everybody else in the room, but I was really exposed to the truth behind WordPress.org, and that makes me like pause for a moment as like one of the biggest distribution point for free plugins. What happens to that after this? And, it's really hard for me to, I can understand everyone's frustrations. I'm frustrated, but also at the same time, it's like, man, look what we've done in 20 years. Even though if we weren't fully privy to all the details, it's like, how do we positively keep this? I go back to like, I can't choose. I don't know how to choose sides. Don't want to choose sides. I just want to positively move WordPress forward. But we're just in this moment where I don't know how that's technically possible now that we've kind of learned .org structure, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. It's a bit challenging, in my opinion.
Yes, it's a big moment. It's a big moment for WordPress. I'm old enough to have lived through a few of these for different projects. I think maybe not an exact comparison, but we were very heavily involved in Drupal when it went from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. And they basically rewrote the thing, top to bottom. And it really blew up in a big way for the community. That was the point where we left. And I saw some research the other day that when it came to sites on Drupal 7, more of them ended up on WordPress than ended up on Drupal 8.
Yeah.
Like literally an enormous chunk of the user base left and went.
Yeah.
Like a real kind of stop dead, think hard about things. Like this is breaking the community almost to a point where things are not going to be the same afterwards. And you look back now and Drupal's doing okay. They weren't quite the same afterwards. There was a shift, and I think a few months after, I'm trying to think of the timeline, but Acquia ended up selling to private equity for $1 billion. You know, like huge money entered the ecosystem as well. And things were different for sure. There was a kind of a hard-nosed realism, like we're doing this under the eye of a private equity company. But they've kept going. A lot of the original people that believed heavily in open source are still there in the Drupal community, still going. There's still a community spirit. There's still a lot of open source software being made. The people that went through it and ended up a little grayer, maybe not quite as idealistic. And so probably the question then is, where's WordPress going to be in 3-4 years? Are we all going to be perhaps still here, but a little more cynical?
Yeah, I probably. Probably. Yeah. I mean, I think, we just want to, and I think now as the dust settles, it's like, just tell us the rules. In fact, never had problems with the rules before, even though they were very kind of loose. And I had even, vocally said over the years, like, hey, turn WordPress.org into a traditional marketplace. I mean, I think now we know why he couldn't, but, put it a traditional marketplace, tax us, like just give us the lane we need to operate in. There's nothing wrong with Automatic and Matt profiting off of this stuff. It's just, it's just very unclear. And you just like year after year, you just don't know where you lie on this stuff. But anyway, I don't want to end it on a negative note.
Glass half full. It could, I mean, you're thinking it could be more like, Shopify, like an open source version of Shopify, like, hey, this is owned by a commercial company at the top. Shopify, this is our brand. We own the brand. No one ever argues about the trademark for Shopify, for example. There's a marketplace. We take a cut. We run the thing. But in WordPress's case, the difference is the code is all open source. And I mean, that's kind of a little bit how it is in Drupal. There is a $1 billion behemoth sitting at the top of the ecosystem. From day one, Dries has always been clear, we own this. Drupal is my baby. I sit on the Drupal Foundation. So clarity, I guess, is the thing you're looking for most of all.
Yeah. That clarity, and again, this is why I'm a proponent for the open source side of it, and why I want folks to not just like negatively talk about it, because I no issue, like, and I've been saying this on some other podcasts as well, is like, make WordPress, if WordPress.com has the better WordPress, fine, make your better version of WordPress over there, and then the ecosystem will make their better version of WordPress through like your tools with PublishPress. Somebody might be using Beaver Builder. That's their better version, and let the ecosystem survive. And I'm not super doomsday where I think all of a sudden WordPress won't be GPL anymore and we won't have that stuff anymore or that ability. But, certainly want to encourage, WordPress, Automatic to survive and be profitable and do all the things. And maybe that'll make a happier Mullenweg. And then the rest of us can move on with our lives. And, there it is. You'll see less WordCamps. You might see less community stuff because now people form the pockets of things, but it's already happening. So let's just get there. That's it.
I mean, how many successful open source projects are there that don't have a big corporate behemoth leading the way? I mean, a lot of the JavaScript libraries are involved with companies like Google. It could be a fairly essential part of a successful open source project is having a unashamedly money-making part of things. But a key portion of that is having very clear legal guidelines, very clear commercial guidelines around it. And you're right, probably we don't know in the end whether the glass is going to be half full or half empty.
Sure.
Look forward 2-3 years, we could still be stuck in sort of little Twitter spats or Reddit thread arguments with Matt throwing things out, or there could be an adult in the room, hopefully Matt himself, to come along and say, we're going to run our community along X, Y, and Z lines. And at the end of the day, I'm one of the co-founders. I run the corporate behemoth. You follow X, Y, and Z, and you like it or lump it.
Yeah. That's Steve Burge. That's Steve at steveburge.com. Check out PublishPress. Check out all of the tools that Steve has. Folks, definitely give Steve a follow. Check out his tools, especially if you're a publisher or you care about the publishing that you're doing with WordPress. Steve, where else do you want folks to go to say thanks?
Oh, that's it. Head over to PublishPress and keep up the great work, Matt. I've been following your podcasts and your Slack channel for years. One good place to find me would be in the WP Minute Slack, where we hang out and talk WordPress every day.
Yeah, it's awesome stuff. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for hanging out today.
Cheers, Matt.